Hey guys, it's Olivia and welcome back to my channel. So I'm going to be doing one of those videos today. The trigger warnings one, I kind of have to plan out a little bit more because I'm insane. I have to go grab a notebook real quick before I start this because it has all my theme stuff in it. So this video is going to be my themes more in depth, which was the most voted one. I'm so happy about it. You guys have no idea. So this is going to be split into like two parts. So the first part is going to be about the overarching theme of the book. So basically what I mean by that is like what lesson I kind of want you to take from it. You get what I mean? Maybe you get what I'm saying, right? So like what lesson do I kind of want you to take from the book? What's kind of like the book's overarching theme? Why should you care? Pretty much as to what my book's about. And then the second part is going to be about character themes. So I'm wondering, what is that? That's a wonderful question. So this is kind of, I don't know if this is something authors do, but this is something I do. I'm trying to go find the page. I did this back in May, but basically I have a couple of words or like a couple of things that really just like describe a character and they have a lesson that they can teach us at the end, kind of thing. So, am I insane for that? Probably. But it's okay. I like it. I think it really like puts a lot more deep stuff into the story. Where is that page? I should have flipped to this before I... Oh my gosh, you gotta be kidding me. Yeah, this notebook is full, so I haven't looked at it in a while. One moment. I promise this will be okay. This has so many stuff. I think it's near the end. I think that's why I'm doing this. It's near the end, isn't it? Sorry. Okay, 1 second. Found it. I found it. Okay. Now I can start. That was very awkward. I'm sorry if you sat there for a while, but we're back. So basically, first I'm going to talk about overarching character themes. So my main character's theme for Exposed specifically, like I feel like each of my books has a specific theme. Some of them I don't really know what it is yet, but for Exposed, I know for a fact. So Exposed kind of has two themes. It has the repeating of history and the, what's the other one? Morality. So you may be wondering, what does this mean? That's a wonderful question. So basically, repeating of history is very interesting to me because I feel like a lot of times in history there are consistencies and sometimes things will repeat or not repeat exactly, but will be very similar. Like I can't really think of an example right now. Like, okay, like for example, World War I and World War II. Yes, they were very different wars with very different things that happened, but they still happened and we didn't really learn from the first one. So that's just an example. So I really try to push this narrative a little bit because Pertho, I feel very weird saying this, but Pertho, I was actually kind of like, is kind of like the concentration camps in World War II. And I'm saying this because it's I say kind of very lightly because there are some elements that were taken from it. Like, for example, characters are called by numbers. I haven't really gone much into that, but they are also forced to wear a uniform and there are different types of jobs. So I guess that's kind of what I got from it. But it's not really the same thing. I'm not trying to glorify it in any way, nothing like that. It's just something to show how bad it is. It's just kind of the point. So, basically, what I'm trying to show, and this book takes place in 2175, which is 130 years. 130 years? 130 years, no, it would be 230. Wait, sorry, my brain. So 1945 plus 100 would be 2045. Plus another 100. It would be 230. Okay, so this book takes place 230 years after World War II. So you may be looking at me like, okay. So this is kind of showing the repeating of history because nobody's learned, and people have kind of forgotten their history. People have mostly forgotten about World War II. I don't mention it in the book. Maybe it just wasn't taught. I don't know. Then again, the government's very corrupt now, so... take with what you will. So it's kind of like the history, it was forgotten, and now it's being repeated in a similar way, but not a overwhelming way. I don't know if that makes sense, but this is the best way I can explain it. This is stuff I've been thinking about for like a year, so saying it and putting it into words is very weird for me. So yeah, it's kind of like people have forgotten their history, and it's kind of like also pushing like why it's important to learn history so it doesn't repeat itself and it doesn't like go into this endless cycle. So yeah, that's the first theme. The second theme is morality. What's good, what isn't, kind of thing. I feel like there's a very fine line between good and evil in certain circumstances, but in other circumstances, there is a large gray area. Morality is very weird because sometimes it can be like, we all know murder is wrong, right? Our conscience tells us murder is wrong. But then there's other things like, oh, what if you kill out of self-defense? That kind of has a gray area, I guess. Well, self-defense is obviously a good thing, but you get what I mean. So I really try to challenge that a little bit in here in the way that it's, like, there is still a fine line between good and evil. Like, we have a good side and a bad side, but sometimes those lines can be blurred. Like, for example, I love bringing this up. I don't know. Okay, but I love bringing this up. Persephone is an amazing example of this. You may be looking at me like, she's the villain, Olivia. And I'm like, I know, that's the best part. So basically, Persephone, yes, she's evil. Yes, she does evil things with glee and joy and confidence. But, and you'll see that a lot in the book because we get a whole point of view in her point of view. We get a whole 8 chapters in her point of view, right? So we get to see a lot of her development. But we also see that there are some things that are kind of in the middle. Like, for example, I don't know if I can give you an example, actually, but she shows a lot of humanity in very interesting ways. That's all I'm going to say to that. But we can see, like, even though she does these evil things, like, she's still a character we can kind of sympathize with, which I think is kind of ties into the morality bit. Because with the morality, like, again, those lines are blurred. Like, even, like, for example, like, somebody could have killed, I don't know where, never mind. That example was weird. I don't even know where I was going with the example I was about to say. I don't even remember. Anyways, but, for example, like, there's a lot of examples in this book. Like, for example, a character, I'm not going to tell you which one, because this is major spoilers, but it's not major spoilers, it's like a spoiler. But for example, a lot of my characters have to do a lot of things to survive. Like, for example, trying to think of a character that I can actually use as an example. Oh, wait, no, I can't use that. I'm trying to think about what's not a spoiler. For example, one of my characters, I'm not gonna name names, has to work for some bad people to keep his family afloat. And that's a big thing. Like, he knows this thing is morally wrong, what he has to do for these people. And I'm not telling you who it is, and I'm not telling you what it is, but because it'll get major spoilers for the book. But I'm just saying that, but his family is literally in debt, and if he doesn't do something, they're gonna lose the house, and they're gonna be out on the streets type thing, right? So it's that type of thing, you know? And then you're thinking about this character. Or, for example, there's mind control involved in my book. I'm not going to tell you how, but it is. So that's also a very thin line. Like, when you're controlled to do something, is that more, like, are you responsible for those actions inevitably, or is it the person? It goes into all this stuff, right? A lot of dark things happen, but I think it just shows that there's a fine line between good and evil, but there's also some gray blurred lines. I don't know if I'm making much sense here, but I hope I am. Yeah, this is kind of like how I see it. And this is shown all throughout the book. I think you'll understand it more when you read it, when it comes out on March 18th. Alright, so now we're going to move on to the second part of the video, which is my character arcs, which is my character themes. It's the same thing. I call it the same thing. So basically, it's about a word or two where it's a lesson that the character teaches. And I'm just going to read them I have a couple sentences for some of them, and sometimes I have like a word. So some of these don't come till later books, but it's only like a word, so it's not going to spoil too much. So I'm just going to read these out to you, and and if I can explain it, I'll try to explain it. Okay? And I wrote this back in, I think, May. Yes, I wrote this in May. Okay, so this is all in May of 2024. So these could have changed, and I'll let you know if they did. But I don't think they did. I think they have stayed pretty consistent since May. So here we go. I feel like a storyteller. I feel like with one of those big books, and those story things, and the light's coming from the book, and I'm casting. I don't know. But it just feels really fun. I don't know why it feels like that. Okay, so first of all, we have Persephone's character. She's the first one I wrote down, so she's the first one I'm doing. So the first one I put down is a want and need for appreciation and love. I can't explain that, but I'm just saying that's one of her character arcs. That's something where it comes from. And then under that, I say where a lack of these things could lead. So like the want of appreciation and love, but where a lack of appreciation and love, and where that could lead, and where holes could go down. And once somebody finally gets appreciation and love, how much they could cling to it. Like, that's a big one for Persephone. I'm not going to say any more because spoilers, but that's one of my favorite ones. Okay, so I don't know if I can tell you this one. I'm not going to tell you that one. Here's another one. I don't know if I can tell you that either. Oh, wait, I can tell you this one, actually. So, her third one, there's another one, but I'm not going to spoil that. So her third one is putting love into people who don't want it, and rejecting people who actually care, which I think was a big problem with a lot of people. And that's a big thing for Persephone, because the people who actually want to get close to her, and the people who actually care for her well-being, she pushes away and thinks that they're liars or they are horrible people, even though they really aren't. They're just trying to help her out. And that's just, that's kind of a lesson that she needs to learn, but she doesn't learn it, which might be a spoiler, but I don't care. And then also another one that I did not write down here is loyalty. Undying loyalty. And she has a lot of loyalty. And I feel like that's really underrated. And also unrequited love is another one. Whether the unrequited one is felt like her, love is felt by her or by other people. And that's all I'm going to say about Persephone. These are kind of the lessons that she has to teach us, like, about these things. I guess. I don't know if this makes sense. Bear with me. Okay, so the next character I have written down is Herald. So Herald is the undeserving of appreciation and love. It's kind of similar to Persephone's, but she wants and needs it. Herald doesn't think he deserves it. There's a very fine line there. We get to see this a little bit here in the book. It's really cool. So we have resentment and understanding, also seen a lot in the book. We have to see, like, resentment, and then also how he thinks through things. So it's kind of like an understanding type thing. I don't know if that makes sense. I just don't really know how to explain this, because it's been in my head for so long, and I'm just like, how do I explain it now? Here's another one, bottling up your emotions and why that's bad. That's a very good one, I think. Another one is this is good. You get to see this a lot in the book, and I'm going to say it, but feeling as if love people show him is an act or a facade, so he rejects the advances. Meaning he doesn't think anyone loves him, except for maybe one or two people. Poor Herald, I love him. I love him. It's okay. Harold's fine. Yeah, but it's really funny. And it's not supposed to be funny, but it's kind of like a lesson against it, in a way. I don't know. You'll see it'll come together on the page, I promise. And then the last one is unhealthy relationship patterns and why that's bad. And this mostly comes in later books, but I can't really tell you too much about that. So next we have Clover. Clover's a side character, but she becomes a main character in later books. So I have her character arc all planned out. And that's same with Nathan. So I'm going to talk about them a little bit. So first is anxiety. Crippling anxiety. You may be wondering, what's this supposed to teach us? Wonderful question. Don't worry, I do know, but I'm just not going to go into explaining it. Second one is therapist friend and bottling up. So, kind of like Herald, except she's the therapist friend. We don't really get to see it in the first book, but in the second book, we get to see it a lot. And it's more in 4 and 5 for that. Because I've been writing a lot of scenes with Clover just being, I'm going to this isn't really a spoiler, but I have a lot of scenes of Clover just being that therapist friend to Trinity, and Trinity just like yelling and screaming. Clover's like, calm down, it's okay, honey. So that's kind of what I'm referencing. Okay. So then, here's another one. Cares about everyone's problems more than her own, and why that's bad. I'm not saying caring about other people is bad, but I'm saying, like, to the point where you're obsessing over their problems and you aren't really taking care of yourself. That's kind of the point it's at. So, that's a lesson that Clover teaches us of why you should not do that. And inferiority, that's another one. Inferiority, feeling as if the people who are around her are better and deserve better than her. That's a big one for Clover. And I'm not going to say much more about that because that's, like, a lot of her parts in later books. So, fingers. Shush. So next we have Nathan. And this one I kind of put like this in quote things, but it's very weird. So Nathan's is, I'm a hero, I have to lead. What does that mean? So he always thinks he has to step up and be a leader and rise up above the others because, yeah, he just thinks he has to be a leader. And he falls in love easily, which is a problem. At least in his early teens, that is a real big problem for him, is that he just falls in love with everybody he sees. Not everybody he sees, that's a lie. But, and like, why that's weird. And also revenge is a big one. I'm not going to tell you how it is, but you'll get it. He doesn't know who he is for a while. So we get to see that a little bit in his past, where he just isn't sure who he is, and he's following in other people's footsteps because he isn't sure where to go. So I think that's interesting. And we also have false hope, and the two sides of that, good and bad. So false hope can be a good thing sometimes, because it's like, oh my gosh, like, it can give you that power to keep going. But at the same time, false hope can be bad, because then your expectations will go down. And that's a lot of Nathan. Nathan will have a lot of false hope, and then it'll end up going to crap. So take what you will with that. Optimism is another one. And this one is like his entire character. Okay. So doesn't feel worthy, so throws himself into things that give him worth. Like, he puts 100% into everything. And that's like a big thing for his character, especially, so you might relate to him if you don't feel worthy on things, and he has to like throw himself into everything just to give him worth. So I think that's cool. All right, so next we're going to move on to Atlas. I love Atlas. Okay, so I don't know if this is making much sense because I'm not really explaining them too much, but these are just kind of like the themes and the lessons that these characters are kind of supposed to teach us, and also things that kind of come through while writing. So it's very hard to explain, but you see it on the page, I guess, is kind of the way. So let's go into Atlas. So Atlas this is mostly coming up in other books, but you see it in this book a lot too. So, caught up in the past, depression. The future's going to be bad anyway, so what's the point? That's a lot of Atlas's character. Not, except in this book, it isn't really. Actually, I think that's changed. Because I think the future's going to be bad anyways, but I gotta keep pushing through it. Like, that's the kind of thing now. It isn't. It used to be this, though. It used to be like, it's gonna be bad anyway, so what's the point of, like, me doing anything with my life? But that's changed. And he's also obsessing over the past. He's very obsessive over his past. He's like, look at what I've done, look at what I've done, look at what I've done. And a lot of the other characters like that too, but not as much as Atlas. You get to see him blame himself to the point of insanity, which I love. I should not be saying that, but whatever. So, and this is the last one I have. So, is blind to the good things, and his trauma controls him until it can't anymore. Mic drop, and we're moving on to Trinity. Okay, so Trinity is too caught up in the past and the future. So this is a little different than Atlas, except she's obsessed about what she's going to be doing in 10 years. Not 10 years, but like what she's doing, like she's nervous all the time. Not all the time, but like, for example, for Trinity, for her past, she obsessed over the past, and she thinks about how this affected her, and she thinks of the future and how that past is going to affect her future. I don't know if that makes sense, but there we go. So, another one is she's too focused on outward goals and loses sight on the important things. Like she's kind of like Nathan, and she goes towards goals, she gives everything 100%, but she loses sight of the important things. Like, for example, actually sitting down and getting rest. Or like friendships or her relationships. Like, she loses sight of that, and we get to see that a lot in this book. And then I put anger issues with like little stars next to it. I don't know why I found that really funny. I don't know if I can show you. Yeah. You can see my little anger issue stars. And then we have and then here's another couple I have for her. So inner child kind of being ignored. And he's unable to embrace her inner child, and her inner child is currently screaming. So you may be wondering what I mean by inner child. I mean, like, kind of like her past younger self, where she kind of like locks it in a box, and she's like, you don't matter. Because Trinity, spoiler, never really had a normal childhood. She didn't even have a childhood, actually. It was more like she had to grow up really, really fast. So, she never really embraced that. She never really, like, got to be a kid. And that kind of still haunts her a little bit. So, take with what you will. I have Paul's character arc, but I'm not going to say it. I have Mabel's, though. So, Mabel's is fear of the unknown, which is a big one, like, and how to kind of overcome it and just, like, go with it. And why these fears can show us good things, which this does kind of happen in here. And then I also put oblivious. She is kind of oblivious, the poor girl. She's less oblivious than she used to be, okay? Like, she actually has hobbies now, which is good. And I have one more. I have this for Micah. I don't have Avalon or Franz in here because I just don't. I don't know why. Okay, so then we have Micah. So Micah doesn't know his place, because you get to see this a lot, where he just feels really misplaced all the time, and he kind of just, like, has a sentence here or there, and he's just, like, standing there awkwardly. I just imagine him being like, what do I say? What do I say? What do I say? He's also unable to find his place, which, yeah. And he's afraid to ask questions. We get to see that a lot in this book. And he's too placid and afraid to fight back, so he tries to keep the peace. That's a lot of a Micah thing. So, yeah. That is all the characters from book 1. And they're kind of like themes and character arcs and lessons that they can teach us. I hope this was worth it to listen to me ramble for a little bit. And yeah, and then tomorrow or Saturday, I'm going to be coming out with a trigger warnings video. So hope you guys stick around for that. And if you watched till the end, thank you so much. And I'm glad you're here. And I will see you in another video.